Hello, everyone. I will be presenting our journey. Our journey is going to be divided in 3 steps. I'm going to walk you through the first one, where I'm going to talk to you how we did this change, what were the drivers for us. On the second part, I call the presentation part the juice, where Miguel will show us how we did it in terms of architecture. And on the last part, I will do the conclusions very, very quick, because I know everyone wants to go to lunch. So, the driver. We had several drivers here when we did the migration, or we did the steps moving to the cloud. We had this journey. The digital transformation is coming into our steps. We want to change digitally how we do stuff. We want to have a common data layer. That was the focus. We want to have a common data layer for projects, for different programs, and there was a major challenge for a lot of us. Why? Because we came from an on-premises systems, and this journey for us meant that everything that we were used to work with now is moving into the cloud. We had several different source systems, and now we need to focus on a new source system in the cloud, and this new source system needs to be perfect to each and every project that we work with. So, just to explain from where we came from. This journey, this cloud journey, for us, we had a different journey a few years back. We started in 2016, where we had this journey to big data. For us in BI for All, we were one of the first projects moving into big data. And moving into big data was also a journey that prepares us for this one in the cloud. I will just walk you through quickly on the architecture, because the tech specialist is here, Miguel, so I won't talk too much on architecture, but let me say a little bit, because I'm also part of it. So when we talk about big data, we know we have several different types of source systems. We know that some of them are structured, some of them are unstructured, and this is something new for a team that was not expected, or it was not yet working with big data. Also, we have the concept of a data lake. We were not yet working with a data lake before, and now we have a data lake. This data lake was for us a data warehouse also, because we didn't find the concept of data warehouse on these projects, because the data lake acts as a data warehouse. So we have the different layers, we have the different new technologies, and at that point in time, the new technologies were Cloudera, or something new on premises yet at that point in time, but for us, it was something that we need to adapt, something that we didn't know. On the last part of the data lake, we had the reporting layer, what we call the semantic layer. The semantic layer is very important here, because it's part of the process where we decided how are we planning to move into the cloud. And this semantic layer will have a huge, huge impact on how we did it. Okay, and then as you see on top of it, the reporting, we had several different tools such as Tableau, Power BI, or Looker. Okay. The first big motivation was we need to move into the cloud, because everything is moving into the cloud in terms of technical, but we also had the systems we work on. So I wanted to tell you a story about how the on-premises systems we were working in for several years. How was it good? How was it not that good because of scalability? So I know that Telmo was talking about a wedding a few hours back, right? And I'd like to talk about a cake. So at the end of the wedding, we have a cake, right? And imagine this. We invite 50 people to the wedding. And we have one big cake that allows one slice of cake to everyone. But then someone messed up, and we have 100 people to have that cake, right? So the slice is a bit shorter and shorter and shorter. The thing with we found out in here is On the projects we are working in, we have a shared platform, the cake. And basically, everyone is coming to that shared platform and wants a piece of the cake. And the scalability, the time to adapt, because if we go to the cook and say, well, I need a second cake. Yeah, but that takes time. I need to bake it, right? So it takes time for us to adapt, to have a new cake. And this was something that we found out on premises. And we normally say inside our projects is, we don't have a clean day, right? You always have something happen with the project we have in. So in terms of maintenance, in terms of infrastructure, we found out a second driver for us to move into the cloud. Because the cloud comes with some expectations, comes with auto-scaling, dynamic resources, dedicated resources. And that was also one of the things that made us wanted to change into the cloud. So going a little bit back in terms of what was the driver from the business perspective of our change. So the idea was we need to make a transition. We know this transition is quite complex because we have a huge program, a lot of projects, and they want to have one single source of truth. We have a small timeline, and we want every project to be capable of moving into the cloud as soon as possible. We know that each project has different data types. We know that the structure, the availability, the way we want to move the data is quite different in each project. But now we have one source of truth. How are we going to do this? In terms of planning, we had three perspectives to do the migration. We had three strategies. The first one was, okay, we are in Cloudera. The system is stable enough. Let's keep everything in Cloudera, and we bring the new stuff from the cloud, and we include on-premises side. The second step was like a lift and shift, where we pick everything that we have in Cloudera, we move everything into the cloud. And the third step, or the third migration approach was, let's start small, okay? We don't want to cause disruption. We want everything to be stable to the business, to the team, to everyone involved. So what we did was, getting back to the reporting layer, we have some packages, aggregated information on Cloudera. Let's pick that up, and we move those packages directly into the cloud. And let's go step by step. We can have 15, 20 packages. Let's pick one up. Let's do the flow. Let's see if it works. If this works, if we create this correctly, what's going to happen is we have one flow that is working. We'll create a framework on top of it, and we'll make sure that that framework works for everything that we have inside our projects. So we started one single package to make sure that everything is working from the beginning to the end. Now, we are moving into the cloud, right? So let's think about the reskilling, because in 2016, we had our reskilling as well. So let's do the second journey. We are entering into the cloud. We entered big data. Now we think about modern BI. We think about different architectures, Lambda, Kappa, a lot of things running, right? But our center are the people, is the people. If we don't have the people here to help us to learn, we are not going to get anywhere in our projects. So first part, I call it the right mindset. I heard the term cloud mindset. I'm calling it the right mindset. So we know in the cloud everything is different. We are not so much thinking about the structures, the cluster. We are thinking about how are we going to do the data movement the best way possible. We know that we need to be modern in terms of how we approach it. We know that we need to be very, very agile on the processes we create. There's a lot of services happening that we can use, but we need to make a good selection of them. In terms of data consumption, we know that this is more pay-as-you-go, so we need to focus much and much more on the data. And we also need to be dynamic. When I say dynamic is, we want to create code, we want to create structures, we want to create everything like frameworks to make sure that we respond to everything that is coming into our way. The second part was, we had the project stabilized. Okay, let's start giving people the time to learn. Because maybe in a few months, maybe in 1 year, we need to have a lot of specialists on the cloud. Yes, okay, we need to deliver our projects, but we need to have some time for the people to start learning. So we focus on giving some study plans, some focus hours for our people to work with. The provider's learning path, the certifications, that was something that we also did. And the last part, and one of the most important for sure, is how we create the synergies inside BI for All. Just two sessions back, we had Rui on stage. Modern BI area. We knew that a lot of people, a few people inside the company, were already working in the cloud. There was some knowledge. How can we correlate this knowledge and learn from the experts? We did a lot of things together, including, do we have architects that can help us move into the cloud? That's where I'm going to pass the ball. Just 1 second, I'll pass the ball to Miguel, but also we found a relation between the project that we have. That's why I put there the business areas, because the way we approach what we want to do, it's very common to different business areas. And we can create a lot of solutions that will fit different types of projects that we work with. So going back and to end my first intervention, we had the big help from architects for us to do the correct choices to move into the cloud. That's where Miguel came to help us, and I'll pass the ball to him now.
Not the ball, but a remote. So cloud adoption. So these guys have been doing a lot of journey. So you're traveling a lot, right? So you've been on cloud air, and now you want to go to the cloud. And one of the things is cloud has so many services. Even if you choose a platform, which you did, we are in Azure, for example, so many services do the same thing. So how do you go there without getting your head in the cloud, and then you get lost? So that's why we have the modern BI area and the knowledge area. We develop frameworks to help with cloud adoption, and we also train our in-house teams to do that. So what I'll give you now is a quick overview of what our architecture for Azure is, and then go into the detail on how is our adoption at this client. So our architecture basically starts with our data sources. So you have event data, you have your databases, REST APIs, web service, whatever you name it. And you want to consume data in different formats. So you have your CSV, Excel files, databases, whatever. From that point on, and we touched on this point on earlier sessions, we also want to be able to consume our data at different speeds. So we had two sessions ago about real-time data. So we have our event-driven approach, and we can consume event-driven data. For that, we have Azure Event Hubs, which is able to handle millions of events per second. And you can combine that with technologies like Databricks, and you have real-time transformations, and then you can do real-time. But also you have your batch workloads, your typical workloads, and for that you're going to use Azure Data Factory, which already comes built in with more than 100 connectors. You can handle multiple data types. You can do a lot, and this is our working horse for data ingestion. Speaking on that, for cases where Data Factory cannot handle, for example, if you want to do web scraping, for example, or more complex APIs, in this case we can resource to Azure Databricks to help us with this component. So with these two components, we can do different architectures, Lambda, Kafka, hot, cold streams, and take that into our structure. What is our core structure? It's our Lakehouse. The Lakehouse is a concept that mixes a little bit of what the data lake is with what the data warehouse is, and that's our modern BI architecture. What we want to have inside here is data at different maturity levels. So we have, for example, if you pick up on Databricks concepts like the bronze, silver, and gold layer, your bronze layer is something that it's like data as it is on the systems, more or less, and with some auditing information eventually. And then you have like silver information that's already data that you can make available to your end users, but it's not like a fully worked and aggregated data for final end user consumption. And then you have your gold layer, which is like your prime, right? And this is what we want to build. How does the data flow inside this system and this architecture? Basically, it's going to land on your data lake or your storage account for Azure on its source format. If it's a CSV, it's a CSV. If it's a Parquet, it's a Parquet or a JSON. There's one exception, which is if you are consuming from a database, we don't have a database file, so we save that as Parquets. From there on, every transformation is going to be made inside Databricks, and now we're going to be working with Databricks objects. These are an abstraction for you guys. It's like you have database tables and views. It's the same as a normal database, and we are going to create that abstraction. How do you actually consume this abstraction? Basically, Databricks provides a compute dedicated resource that you can use for heavy workloads, for your BI analytics team will work with these Databricks SQL warehouses. But sometimes SQL warehouses are expensive, and picking on cakes, now you have 100 guys wanting to consume the cake, and tomorrow you have 200, no problem. Auto size it, and you can now have 400 cakes available. So it's really easy to get more cakes to everyone. The other option that we have is, but those cakes take a little bit of time to get up and done, but you have a second option, which is a serverless SQL pool. For this, for example, you have your users coming into your platform, and they want to connect and explore your sources. They are used to SQL Server, for example, and this creates a virtualization of your Lakehouse as a SQL database. And it's instantly available. And it's very, very cost efficient, so it's very low cost. The drawback is sometimes it might be a bit slower, but for self-service analytics or for data exploration, that's exactly what you want. From this point on, you can build your analytical models with Power BI and Looker, for example. That's what's available in this client, but you could also use Tableau or any other tool to connect to this source. And you're going to have your end users. So they'll consume your official data models, your official reports. They can directly connect to your Lakehouse, do their exploration, their analytics. And you can also have other applications that will consume from your Lakehouse directly. Then we have some extra components. So we have to, as Sérgio was saying, he has like 10 packages. He has workflows for this package. How do you orchestrate all of this? So basically, we have a database where you configure all the objects that you want to run, all the dependencies you want to run. And then on top of that, you need some computation. In Azure, you use Azure Functions. And that's going to tell Databricks, run me this notebook, or Data Factory, run me this pipeline. And that's how you do orchestration. Touching just a little bit here also on the content we've been talking about in other sessions, the multi-cloud and this kind of stuff. So you can call with this orchestration Azure function and objects, but you can also call external resources. Imagine you are dependent on something that was processed on Caldera, and you want to trigger that process first. So you can tell your Azure function, your orchestrator, run that first, and then after that, go and consume that into my data lake or into my Lakehouse. Then Azure offers out of the box a lot of platform services that are very useful. Sorry, Sérgio. That are very useful for you to develop and deploy. One of the main components is the Azure DevOps for CI/CD. That can link with our previous sessions. For example, you have automated tests, and we are moving something from a development into a quality environment. You can integrate tests in there, and Azure DevOps does that for you. So it's really easy. It comes out of the box. It's very integrated with all the services in Azure. Then, sorry, I don't want to skip. Then we have cost management. It's really easy, as you were mentioning also. Cloud has a lot of costs. It's hard to predict, but it's very easy to track. So you can track all your resources, what is being spent on with this cost management billing application. You can also set budget alerts. So if you get to a certain threshold, you get an email, an alert. Okay, be careful, you have exceeded your limit. And you can do all of that. Another important thing is we have Azure Monitor. So you can monitor the performance and execution of all your runs and all your service in a single place. And then you have Azure Active Directory, where basically you're going to take care of security, access control, and all of that. So this is, in a nutshell, an overview of our framework. Of course, it can be complemented with a lot of more services, but this is for you not to get your head in the cloud, but get your resources in the cloud at your work. So moving on, our cloud adoption and what we did at this project was basically we went with the top first approach where we wanted to move the reporting layer into the cloud. So we have our data sources that we already discussed, and we're going to do this in 2 phases. So phase 1, just the reporting layer. For phase 2, we're going to move all the project into the cloud and get rid of the on-prem work. So phase 1, on-premise data warehouse, that's what we had. the cloud area, the Hive that Sérgio already showed us, and all the work is already being done there. So all the ETL or ELT work, it's going to keep being done there. Then we have our Lakehouse coming in, and here I'm just going to explain to you a little bit of what are the layers that we use in this project and overall on our architecture for the cloud in Azure. So the raw I already discussed, so files will land there as they are coming from the systems. With one added information for you guys, usually we keep a copy of all our extractions. This can be done for later reprocessing of information or for auditing purposes. Then we're going to move that, So then what we have is our standardized layer. So I talked before that after the data landed in our Lakehouse, then we need to transform that into Databricks structures, tables. And that's what's done on standardized. So basically, it's equivalent to our operational data store, for example. That's what you create on a standardized layer. It's no more than the copy of what you had in CSV, but now it's in the data table, or it was in JSON, now it's in the data table. And we had some audit columns like extraction date, something like that. Then you have your stage layer, which is all your business logic gets built in that phase, and it's going to get stored there. So it's a transient layer for your data. It has only the loads that you are doing now. If you're doing incremental load, for example, for last month, that's what's going to be worked there. It has all your business logic in it. And then the final layer, the persistent layer, is you're going to have, for example, if we're talking again about Databricks concepts, is like silver and gold tables are all there on your persistent layer. Bronze tables will be your standardized, because they are as they were in the system. So as said before, first stage, first phase, what we do, we copy all our data that's already processed, already worked on, and make that and copy that into our persistent layer. So Databricks jump all the other layers. We don't care with them for now. And then we need to serve them. So basically, we're going to set up also our Databricks clusters, our cake delivery system. We're going to have our sign-up serverless SQL pool for our data exploration and self-service. We connect to our models and visualizations, and we make it available to our end users. At the end of phase one, what we want is that we don't have one user or any user is consuming for our on-premise data warehouse. They'll be consuming through the data lake. For them, it's irrelevant where the work is done. And at this moment, the work is done on-prem. But they're already accessing to the cloud. This gives us the leverage of now being able, on an iterative way, to step by step, we do the full process. And for the user, it's completely transparent. So that's what we could do in phase two. Phase two, we're going to bring our data into our Lakehouse. We're going to go through all the layers and the transformations that I talked recently. And we're going to serve that data. And at the end, only at the end, when we have gone through all the packages, all the iterations, we can decommission our on-premise data warehouse. And now you might ask, was it this clean? First of all, we are still here. We still have some packages to convert. And then, did we always follow top-first approach? The answer is no. So somewhere along the way, there was a project that said, OK, Miguel, I have here an on-prem process. We need a new source, which happens to be another Databricks table from another team, but we want that data. And that data is like 10 tables. We want to transform that into one table, and then continue with on-premise process, and deliver on-prem. What can you do? I already have Azure there. Can we use it? And I said, yeah, OK, let's use it. Let's see how we do it. So I call this the hybrid approach, because we are, well, the other one was also a bit hybrid, because we're still doing all the processing below. But this will do the other way around. So what we do is we have our Databricks, we have our on-premise Lakehouse, data warehouse, and we have our Lakehouse. So what we'll ask now is basically get my Databricks tables, which are like 10 tables, take that to the Lakehouse, and transform that into a single table. So it's easier for my on-prem process to go from there. So we did that. So we consumed 10 tables, made an intermediate table, and now give that through our serving layer to my on-prem data warehouse. And now take it from there, integrate that in your existing process, deliver that to your business users, and everything is done. Well, not quite, because at the end, as we know, we want to drop the on-prem environment, send that all away. So what we need to do is, phase two, we're going to reuse what we did before, and this was the great advantage. So if I hadn't done this, I would now be doing repurposing of the code and having to do this again. So no, it's already done. We already did it in the cloud to begin with. So the only thing we need to do now is, you see that cogwheel in there? Well, yeah, That's going to go into our Lakehouse. So we transform the process there. From this point on, the same structure. We give that data to end users. We decommission our delivery through the on-prem data warehouse. So now everyone is consuming from the cloud. And now, once this is done, and all the iterations before from the top first approach are done, we are on the cloud. Sérgio?
Thank you, Miguel. So I'm just going to stay seated because I watch the room perfectly from here. I'm not lazy, okay? In terms of conclusions, I'm going to be quite fast because I already talked about cakes and everyone should be hungry now. 3 parts. Planning. Eisenhower, I'm not sure if you know him, but he was president in the United States, and he said, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And we made sure that we followed it, because when we are planning, we are going through the phases to make the right final scenario. We pass through everything. And we are still on the middle of the journey, as Miguel mentioned, but we are sure we are going on the correct path because the planning happened. The second part is the right mindset, journey again. We are doing the cloud journey now. We had to change all the way that we were working, the way we are thinking about solutions. And the right set means that we are adaptable, that we are expanding our comfort zone. We are not leaving our comfort zone. We are having a bigger comfort zone. And the third, last but not least, everyone that works with me, if you guys are here, people first. We need to give time for people to learn. People are doing adjustments. People are learning new stuff. People love to learn new stuff, but they need the time to learn. And if we create a good environment for our people to learn, new talent is coming, new talent is having the best time of their life learning with us. That is the focus.
Yeah, I just want to add one quick thing. So if you want to do this journey with us, reach out to me, to Sérgio, and we can also take this journey with you, and we'll be glad to.
Thank you.